Title: Keeping the Group Going. Ace speaking.
Peer support is all about building connections. And when someone doesn't show up, well, they're missed. You need to create an environment where everyone is important, everyone is valued. And how do you practice that? If someone doesn't show up, you follow up, you check in. And it could be just a phone call. Oh, hey, we missed you. How are things going for you? What's been happening?
George speaking.
Sometimes I like to do a personal phone call just to sort of connect with people, just to make sure that they're okay and, see if they're going to come again and engage with them to see what their responses were.
Julie speaking.
I often find myself asking fellow peer members if they're going to be at the next meeting, and if they're not, I like to catch up with them in another time.
What I tend to do a lot of is the planning before the meeting, and that's making sure the venue's still available, making sure people know the time, the location, and then if we need to invite guests, we invite them and give them ample time, so there's a fair bit of planning.
Title: Keeping it interesting. George speaking.
Whenever the numbers start to go down, I tend to like to get onto the telephone and just have a chat with everybody, see where they are, and then sort of go from there.
Julie speaking.
Sometimes people might be uncomfortable with the person who's running the group or leading the group, so then it might be up to you to have a conversation with that peer who's running the group about how they can better work with everyone. Or it might be that sometimes people just want to have a chat instead of being there for a topic, so you might want to plan different events in between or change up your meeting. Other times people's schedules might change, so then you might have to reconsider the day and time that you meet. Another way to engage people again is maybe to change up your meeting place. So last week we actually went to the Disability Expo, and that was a little different to what we normally do.
Title: Feedback and Evaluations. Julie speaking.
Sometimes it's important as well to check in on how you're going with your peer groups. How are your members feeling? So it might then be a matter of having some questions for them to answer every few months just to see how they're enjoying it, what could be improved, and it might be then a good idea to get someone else who's not the facilitator or leading the group and get someone else to ask others about that.
George speaking.
It is really important to get that feedback. That feedback leads us towards, I suppose, improving. And, things can become stale otherwise. What I like to do when I'm giving feedback is, I don't like to be really blunt. I like to be a bit more tactful and just make some suggestions for people to have a think about. Sometimes because you're so involved, you don't see yourself actually performing. Giving you that feedback, it really helps you better yourself and better what you're doing.
What comes out of those surveys and the feedback is really important. Just remember, feedback is a gift.
From the heart.
Yeah.
Title: Different People and Situations. Julie speaking.
Everyone who comes to a peer group is different. Sometimes people will come and they won't say anything, and that's okay. Sometimes they might want to have that social connection, but are more comfortable speaking one-on-one. So it's up to you as a peer to approach them afterwards and have that conversation with them.
George speaking.
I don't know about you, but sometimes in a really gentle manner, if you probe people, they sometimes share a bit of their story, and that's a really good way to engage people.
Ace speaking.
If someone cries, there has been some situation where a topic has hit a heartstring or someone has cried. What we do is you validate what they feel and you create a space where they're able to feel that sadness or that frustration, and then you work with peers to make sure that that person is okay. and you have a peer who can actually check in, maybe after the meeting, just to make sure that that person's okay.
Sometimes people are still very shy to bring their stuff out in a group, but gradually you work on it and you sort of chip away at it as they develop confidence.
Title: Hearing Everyone's Voices. Ace speaking.
In a peer support group, it's really important that we all get the opportunity to have our say or to feel that we're heard. And there are people who sometimes take up a lot of, the time or the meeting, space huggers.
George speaking.
That's an interesting one. When somebody's hogging the space, what do you do, Jules?
Yeah, I like to slip in that moment where I tell them there's a lot for you to share, so it might be good for us to then talk about it through lunch afterwards, because we usually meet for lunch after our meeting, so it's a more relaxed environment. It might be a good idea then to let everyone know that they have 10 minutes at the start of the day to go around the table, so there is an opportunity for them to speak, and just depending on how many people you get, you just have to set a bit of a time around that.
What you do is you kind of respectfully say, so we need to be mindful of the time and that everyone has had a chance to share their experience or share what they know. Hopefully that works. Sometimes it doesn't, and it could be a matter of talking to that person, bringing them aside and just kind of talking to them about, you need to be mindful sometimes that, you need to let others have the opportunity to speak. It also could be a matter of putting it back to the group and saying, okay, so-and-so is really frustrated with this issue, but this is what we've actually got planned for today. What do we want to do? That's what peer-led is all about. It's about us owning the space, us owning the time, and just respecting each other's time, as well as creating that environment where we're actually moving forward somehow.
Title: Finding Funding. Ace speaking.
Sometimes peers might come in who might have additional support needs that maybe the group can't cover. So that's where, additional support might be required, or we might look for other avenues for support, for money, for funding. You can always look for some projects that are around. There are projects around that support the development of peer support groups. Local council might be able to support you. So having a meeting with your local MP could be useful in getting some funding behind your peer support group. There's also the corporate sector, corporate social responsibilities. Another, way you can actually participate is maybe looking into your NDIS package. So you can actually use your NDIS package to participate in peer support groups and peer support meetings.
Title: Growing the Peer Movement. Ace speaking.
Make sure that when you make connections that you actually record them and keep them. Maybe create a list and keep adding to the list, and that's how you build the movement. You make sure that people are always in the loop of what's happening in your peer support group. It's sharing information, not just in the meetings, because sometimes people aren't able to attend a specific meeting. Promoting far and wide, which means, developing the flyer and actually sharing it with peers for them to actually hand out and distribute. Popping it up on local notice boards, sharing it at the local library, always having it in your bag just in case the opportunity arises, and you never know. You could have a conversation with someone on the train.
This video was made for Diversity and Disability Alliance, www.ddalliance.org.au. Thanks to Abby, Ace, George, Julie, Montaha and Pauline, and to all the peers who helped make this video. Produced by Futures Upfront and Thinkwell Digital.